The Interview by Christopher Sylvester. Short answer questions. Why does the author begin by presenting contrasting views on interviews? What purpose does this serve? Answer: contrasting views immediately highlight the subjective nature of interviews, setting the stage to explore their complexities. This approach engages the reader by presenting different perspectives before revealing the author's own, prompting consideration of varied experiences and opinions surrounding this common interaction. What can be inferred about the interviewee's state of mind based on the description of their nervousness? Answer: the described nervousness suggests the high pressure and stakes often associated with interviews. It implies the interviewee's anxiety about being judged and scrutinized, potentially affecting their ability to present themselves authentically and articulate their thoughts effectively during the formal evaluation. Why might some people consider an interview an ordeal? What aspects contribute to this feeling? Answer: viewing an interview as an ordeal likely stems from the perceived power imbalance and the formal, evaluative setting. The pressure to perform, articulate oneself flawlessly, and the fear of judgment contribute to this stressful experience, making it feel like a difficult trial for the interviewee. What does the phrase "thumbprints on his windpipe" metaphorically suggest about the interview's impact? Answer: this metaphor powerfully suggests an oppressive or suffocating feeling experienced by the interviewee. It implies that the interview's presence or questioning style could feel intrusive and restrictive, hindering the interviewee's natural flow of thought and ability to express themselves freely and comfortably. Infer why celebrities often express a dislike for being interviewed. What might be their primary concerns? Answer: celebrities likely dislike interviews due to the potential for invasion of their privacy and the risk of misrepresentation in the media. Their primary concerns might include the constant scrutiny of their personal lives and the feeling of being reduced to public personas rather than being seen as multifaceted individuals. What can be inferred about the interview's role beyond simply asking questions? Answer: the interview's role extends beyond merely posing questions. It involves active listening, interpreting responses, and skillfully guiding the conversation's direction. They shape the narrative that emerges, influencing how both the interviewee and the audience understand the interaction and its outcomes. Why might Umberto Eco feel that interviews are sometimes a waste of time? What could be his reasoning? Answer: Eco, as an intellectual, might perceive some interviews as superficial, focusing on trivialities rather than substantive ideas. His reasoning could be that the time spent in such exchanges could be more productively used for deeper intellectual engagement or creative endeavors, yielding more meaningful insights. What does Eco's analogy of the interview being like reaching the bottom of a bottle suggest about the process? Answer: Eco's analogy suggests that interviews can be a process of extracting all the essential thoughts or information from a person, potentially leaving them feeling somewhat depleted or fully exposed. It implies a thorough, perhaps even exhaustive, level of inquiry into the interviewee's perspectives. Infer why some interviews might focus on controversial or personal topics. What could be their motivation? Answer: some interviews might focus on controversial or personal topics to generate greater public interest and create a more compelling narrative. Their motivation could range from a journalistic pursuit of truth and newsworthy angles to a more sensationalist desire to capture audience attention. What can be inferred about the power dynamic between the interview and the interviewee in most formal settings? Answer: in most formal interview settings, the interview typically holds a position of greater power. They control the questions asked, the flow of the conversation, and ultimately, the resulting narrative, placing the interviewee in a more reactive and potentially vulnerable position within the interaction. Why might an interviewee feel like a specimen under a microscope? What aspects of the interview contribute to this feeling? Answer: an interviewee might feel like a specimen under a microscope due to the intense scrutiny and detailed analysis they undergo. The focused questioning and the interview's objective observation can create a sensation of being thoroughly examined and critically evaluated in every aspect of their responses. What does the author's inclusion of varied opinions on interviews suggest about his own stance? Answer: by presenting a range of perspectives on interviews, the author suggests a nuanced understanding of this form of communication. It hints that his own view likely acknowledges both the potential value and the inherent limitations or negative aspects often associated with the interview process and its impact. Infer why some interviewees try to control the narrative during an interview. What strategies might they use? Answer: interviewees might attempt to control the narrative to present a more favorable image, avoid uncomfortable or probing questions, or emphasize specific aspects of their experiences and achievements. Strategies could include subtly steering the conversation, highlighting particular points, or politely deflecting unwanted inquiries. What can be inferred about the ethical considerations involved in the interview process, based on the text? Answer: the text implicitly raises ethical considerations concerning the potential for invasion of privacy and the possibility of misrepresentation through interviews. The diverse opinions highlight the tension between the public's interest in information and an individual's right to their personal boundaries and accurate portrayal. Why might the terrifying prospect of an interview be more pronounced for certain individuals? Answer: the terrifying prospect of an interview might be more intense for individuals who are naturally introverted, find it challenging to articulate their thoughts under pressure, or harbor a greater fear of judgment and public scrutiny inherent in such formal evaluative interactions. What does the act of demolishing someone through an interview imply about the interviewer's approach? Answer: demolishing someone through an interview suggests an aggressive, confrontational, or highly critical approach adopted by the interview. This implies an intent to expose weaknesses or inconsistencies rather than fostering a collaborative exchange aimed at mutual understanding and insight. Infer why some interviewers prefer live interviews over recorded ones. What advantages might live interviews offer? Answer: some interviews might prefer live interviews for their spontaneity and the opportunity for real-time interaction, potentially leading to more candid and revealing moments. Live formats also allow for immediate follow-up questions and a dynamic exchange that a pre-recorded interview might lack. What can be inferred about the relationship between an interview and the truth, based on the various perspectives presented? Answer: the varied perspectives suggest that the relationship between an interview and the truth is complex and can be influenced by individual biases, the interviewee's self-presentation, and the subsequent editing or interpretation of the interaction, potentially shaping the final narrative. Why might the author have chosen to present the chapter through excerpts and opinions rather than a single narrative? Answer: presenting the chapter through excerpts and diverse opinions allows the author to offer a multifaceted exploration of interviews, showcasing the wide range of experiences and viewpoints associated with them. This structure encourages readers to engage critically and form their own informed perspectives. What underlying message might the author be conveying about the nature of communication and understanding through the lens of the interview? Answer: the author might be subtly conveying that genuine communication and deep understanding in an interview setting are often complex processes, significantly influenced by power dynamics, personal biases, and the inherent limitations of the structured question and answer format itself. Thank you. Prepared by K. Rajendra Prasad.